Or you're doing it. Okay. Thanks, Rob Iron, for that lovely introduction. Let me just screen share my PowerPoint. Hopefully this is the right one. Yeah, let's start it. Slideshow, play from the start. Okay. Yeah, so I'm Josh Fader, child family psychiatrist. I'm also, Rabbi Aaron didn't mention it, but I'm co-chair of disaster and trauma issues for the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. So we have a network that's nationwide and global, trying to support people in various parts of the world when anything happens. So we were actually at our conference a week ago and talking a lot about the war. We had already been talking about Maui and Libya and Morocco, and then there was a shooting in Maine. I'm also a board member at the Jewish Federation of San Diego. But let's just jump right into this. So there are a number of common reactions to terror, and I'm certainly hearing about these from the people I work with and my colleagues and friends and just people who call. Anxiety, irritability. By the way, I'm talking about us, I'm talking about our kids, I'm talking about little kids, a lot of different ages. Trouble concentrating, anger, sadness. Some people have a feeling of guilt, like, I know I'm not feeling good, but others have it worse, but why should I feel bad? Am I allowed to? And then some people feel like shame, meaning that they themselves are bad. I'm in a safe place, and somehow that translates to feeling like you're a bad person because you're in a safe place, right? I should be over there. I should be in the thick of it. There are people who identify really closely with our friends and family over in Israel and other places. Those people are suffering are all my children is one of the thoughts that some people bring to me. Some of the kids will say, I mean, these are like my brothers and sisters over there. And it really, kind of rips you apart. I'm sure many of you have had some of these reactions. Some people avoid certain places or hide their identity. We've heard about some of that in our community, people not wanting to send their kids to certain schools or avoiding certain parts of town or whatever. And then some people parade who they are. They'll put on a kippah when they hadn't worn one or put out a star. So there's all kinds of common reactions to what's going on to the terror. And here's some just typical advice that I want you to kind of take to heart. And Rabbi Aaron, you're free to just send out this PowerPoint when we're done to anybody. But one of the most important things is to keep to routines. I don't know if you ever read about Anna Freud, Sigmund's daughter, but she helped kids during uh, the Battle of Britain when there were a lot of bombs coming down into London, places like that. And she observed back then that families who stuck to routines actually did better. Um, so if you kind of if you're able to stay steady, then your kids do better. When parents do better, kids do better. Self-care is a pretty obvious thing to say, but how many of you in the past, month or so have not hydrated, have not eaten properly, have not gotten rest, have just let exercise and other activity just fall apart? Those are really important to keep you going and keep you focused and able to withstand the stresses that are going on. Connecting with your community here, you're connecting with Beth Am a little bit. A lot of us have other sub communities. For some of the college kids, it might be Hillel. For some of other kids, there might be other kinds of organizations, GLC, Sabra, stuff like that. And reaching out to others and letting them know that you care, whether it's family or friends in Israel or just family and friends or other colleagues locally. It really means a lot to people to hear from somebody, and it also helps you. I mean, one of the keys to happiness is helping other people. And we need to stay active in the bigger community. I'm going to reiterate this a couple times. Don't let the fear stop you from living your life. So it's bad for you. You end up getting closed in and your world just really shuts down. And it's not good for you. It's not good for our community, our Jewish community. But you need to be safe. You shouldn't take unneeded or foolish risks. The goal is to tolerate fear better, not to try to get rid of your fear, because if you try to do that, you really can't. And then you're going to be looking to sort of erase it all the time, like any anxiety, and you'll only become more anxious or more afraid. So that again, the idea is to be able to live with fear, not get rid of it all. That's really impossible to do. Hope is really good. Prayer can help a lot of us, feel less alone and stronger. what do we pray for? I mean, are we praying for things, praying for peace, of course, but a lot of time we're praying so that we feel less alone and for the strength to keep going. A belief in a better future after the situation is over is really important to try to cultivate. It is not easy to do. I'm not saying that that's easy, but try to think about it that way. And having a phrase or maybe two or three that you can say to yourself may keep you going. We will survive. We always have as a people. We'll get through this and rebuild. We always have. And we're strong with God, with each other, with whatever. Hope is good. Some responses to fear are dangerous. So if you're hopeless and not wanting to live, if you're angry to the point of planning or thinking about violent action against other people, if you really can't think because you're just so, you know, uh, uh, taken with what's going on or, whatever current event it is. And by the way, you should not be driving, and teenagers shouldn't be driving if they're kind of overwhelmed by these things. And a lot of people aren't sleeping well. So poor sleep to where you can't function safely, that's dangerous too. So for these kinds of situations, seek professional help. Don't wait. If you know somebody with these kinds of things going on, get them to professional help. Sometimes you'll have teenagers who will be, talking about these things, telling their friends, "Oh, don't tell anybody, but I'm feeling like I don't want to live." That's when not to keep a secret and to try to get people to help. We should talk a little bit about trauma-informed care. I mean, one of the things that we do when anybody's been through a difficult time, and our community is going through a difficult time, is we try to pay attention to these important principles of safety, choice, collaboration, trustworthiness, and empowerment. And I'm giving you some words here that might help when you're talking with your kids. For safety, we're going to stay in the world, but we're going to be careful enough. We want to give choices where it's possible. Go to the game or go to the mall. And by the way, those choices are kind of out in the community. They're not staying home, right? Working together. Let's make a plan that we can all agree on. And being trustworthy, right? It's truthful to say these are difficult times, or if someone died, they died, right? Avoid the brutal details that would harm people listening, however. So it's one thing to be trustworthy in the sense that you're going to tell the truth. It's another to actually add to the trauma by talking too much about the details. And empower people. Remember, we're going to get through this together. And so that helps people. And the key here is to balance comforting others while staying able to do the things we need to do, right? You're comforting your kids. You're saying, we're going to do things safely, but we're not going to stop living our lives. So how do we hold steady? We actually do this by helping each other hold steady. What do I do when I'm having a bad day? I'll call Sarah lots of times and say, "What do you think of this?" And we'll kind of think about it. I call Rabbi Ern sometimes too. We kind of depend on each other. We help each other kind of stay steady. And our job, I hope, is to help you stay steady so that you can help your kids stay steady. That makes sense? So it's like a nested set of support, which is how we build a community that can help each other. Try not to react to incitement. I'm sure you've all had stories here and there about something happened at a store or something happened at a university. It's true, there are bad things that happen, but it's a problem when people just kind of react without kind of getting the facts. Well, just like all the news outlets reacted when they said, "Oh, Israel bombed a hospital." Well, not so fast, right? You want to check out the facts and think through your responses. Don't start with, we're going to go get him. We're going to get him fired. I mean, maybe that's the right thing to do, but just think through the facts and really take your time. I said it before, stay connected with our broader community. We're actually less safe when we isolate ourselves as a community. We need to be working with people who can be our friends and be our allies, be reaching out to them. I had a friend of mine from the neighborhood call me, and it turned out that at her church they said, "Reach out to your Jewish friends." I was so grateful for one, and for another, being in touch with her makes us stronger as a whole community, especially when there's a lot of pressure for things like stopping Israel from going after Hamas, things like that. And call your congressional representatives. You probably got the email from Rabbi Kornberg. I think it was on Friday. It's really actually an important thing to do. There are big calling campaigns by anti-Semitic people who are saying, Israel's got to stop and they're killing all the kids. And you know what? I don't think any of us wants innocent civilians killed. Nobody wants that. But if Israel needs to protect herself and needs to do things to protect herself, what we don't want is Congress wavering too much. So you can call, he gave 5 numbers for all our local congressional representatives. Call them all, tell them what you feel. That Israel needs to defend herself and to be strong. And thank them because they've all been supportive so far. And avoid traumatic media, right? So read and talk to trusted people. It's better to read stuff than to look at pictures that will traumatize yourself. Talk to people about these things. I've got some other social media stuff coming up. What do you say to ceasefire or genocide when you hear those things sort of in your face? And Sarah's going to talk more about it. I have a phrase that I use, and I teach it to our high school kids when I teach. Everyone deserves safety and peace. And you can actually repeat that over and over. Everyone deserves safety and peace. Everyone deserves safety and peace. Everyone deserves safety and peace. I mean, you can just say it in different ways. It's actually a pretty good blanket response to some of this stuff. And again, Sarah's probably has some more specific things. Some people have a really different reality. Rabbi Ear mentioned that I work with people on the Palestinian side. I actually have a meeting with them in a couple hours, and they have an entirely different view of reality. They think our news that we believe is fabricated, right? Just like we believe that their news is fabricated. I'm certain their news is fabricated, but they're certain that our news is fabricated. What we do hear from them, for instance, is Israel's bombing these civilians. There's no way they're going to get Hamas because they're hiding in tunnels. They're just killing, civilians, and they're coming after us next in the West Bank. So they truly believe it, and they're truly worried. And they're saying to me, I don't want any kids killed. I don't want Israeli kids killed. Obviously, not everybody feels that way on that other side. I mean, there's all kinds of things, but there are a lot of people who are just seeing a different reality, and we're not going to change their reality. But there are people, especially locally, who are kind of bystanders, or maybe they've been told something and they kind of believe it, but they don't really know. And Project Shema is actually a great program to train us to help other people understand and slow the spread of anti-Semitism. I've got a link to it later on. Oh, there it is. So if you want to learn more about disaster reactions at different age groups, I've got a link there. Responding to threatening situations just generally. Social media kinds of advice about steering clear of traumatic media, and then Project Shema. So I'll stop there. Thanks for your kind attention, and I'll let Sarah take it out. Take it on.
Thanks, Rabbi Aaron, and thanks, Dr. Fader. I definitely want that PowerPoint because for me, this was like a nice, soothing moment where I was able to be like, okay, yes, I'm doing some of the right things, and there's a lot that I actually really need to be doing a better job of. I've been talking to a lot of parents about what anti-Semitism has looked like since October 7th. And I was talking to parents before that as well as youth. And we're seeing right now, I mean, we already were in a difficult reality. We know because of quantitative data that has been tracking the number of incidents, anti-Semitic incidents over years, that we have seen a historic spike in anti-Semitic incidents, rhetoric, violence. We have quantitative data that tracks these numbers and is pointing to some very disturbing trends. I feel like each year the FBI, for example, is announcing that this year they're seeing a historic spike. In 2022 alone, the FBI hate crimes report, it just was published recently, and they saw a 37% increase in anti-Semitism. And this is before what we saw with October 7th. Since October 7th, data is showing that we are seeing a 400% increase in anti-Semitic incidents right now, 400%. And so I want to not contribute to a lot of what I feel is hysteria and fear right now, but I do want to acknowledge that if you're feeling like you're seeing and hearing a lot more anti-Semitism online, in person, in the news, it is, in fact, this is a really difficult time for the Jewish people, not just here in San Diego or in the United States, but around the globe. when I am talking about anti-Semitism, I try to be really specific with my words. I'm talking about the definition, for me, the definition of anti-Semitism. I pull from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IRA, and that definition says that, and I'm going to read it. Anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. I find this to be a really important definition because it's not just about hatred. Plenty of times I've been told, oh, I don't hate Jews. I'm not an anti Semite. I just think they have too much power. That leans into that certain perception of Jews. It's not just hatred based, it's also myths, it's conspiracy, it can be Holocaust distortion and denial, or it can be, and this is a lot of what we're seeing right now, delegitimization, demonization, or holding to a double standard the state of Israel and its people, this being the only Jewish state in the globe. So when I'm talking about anti-Semitism, this is what I'm talking about. And I want to talk a little bit about three areas where I think that in particular for parents, we're juggling what this spike in anti-Semitism means for our families and for our kids. The first one that I was thinking about was at school. And basically, I want to talk about how to be a child's advocate, your child's advocate, which is what you're already doing. This is a weird new space, but you're already experts in being an advocate for your child. Schools are really important because they're not just centers for education, they're hubs for innovation, community building. This is where your kids, many of their friend groups are. This is where they are exploring themselves. They're growing and learning within what is supposed to be a safe environment meant to nourish them as they develop into young adults. There's safety and safety and well-being, not just of your kids, but also the faculty and staff. This has to be a really, really central priority. And you can play a role here in addressing the issue of anti-Semitism at your children's schools if it's there. Now, I want to say there's the reactive side and there's the proactive side, and I'll talk a little bit about both. But being their advocate doesn't mean going in there screaming and yelling, voices raised. Like, we have to do it in a constructive way that is complementary to the school's efforts and recognizes that in a lot of instances, schools don't really know necessarily that your child is hurting or stressed or struggling. So you have to be proactive in letting them know, hey, can I have a meeting with you? I just want to explain why my child might be unusually stressed out right now and give them some of the context. Don't assume that they know and that they get it. Also, don't assume that they know what anti-Semitism is. AJC has something called Translate Hate. It's a glossary of terms that help you to recognize and define different tropes and stereotypes and hate rhetoric that's out there, and then gives you language to go in and be an advocate and talk about if these things are being said in the classroom or in the schools, in the hallways, by peer groups, by parents, by teachers, why it can cause harm. But just don't assume necessarily that your school administrators, leadership, or educators know what anti-Semitism is. It's not very well understood by many Americans, and education on this is really crucial. So this is a space where you can go in and proactively say, I know you have such a commitment in your school to DEI. Are you also doing training about anti-Semitism, as it is the oldest hatred with now we can trace it more than 2 millennia. It's the oldest hatred in the books. And if your DEI training is lacking this, if your cultural awareness newsletters are not talking about the Jewish holidays and things to look out for and ways to be allies to your Jewish classmates, this is an area where you can come in and be constructive and then connect them with various organizations and institutions like my own and others. We do this work. We offer this kind of PD training. We'll go in and have those meetings with the leadership in the schools and even one-on-one with educators as we need to. So I think that this is a really important opportunity to be an advocate for your kids. And to also represent them, encourage the schools, do educational programming. Some of that's for the teachers, but they can also do educational programming that's age appropriate based on, is it a high school and elementary school, middle school. But they could also be raising awareness amongst the school body. They have to do it thoughtfully. They have to do it carefully. Generally, it's better if it's not a one-off program, but a series of programs, or it's integrated into the fabric of the school. I can help with that if there's an interest in being that kind of advocate. Then I was thinking about how to be an advocate and model and do the care online for kids. They're online all the time. So we should teach them to be critical consumers of their media. Talk about some of the buzzwords, the myths, the disinformation that they might face and how to address it. And after this, I'd love to really hear what are some of the buzzwords you're hearing, because I have like my own mental list of what I'm being told kids are hearing. But let's talk about what those words are. Or the tropes or the lines, and then we can talk about why they're problematic, and I can try to help give you a little bit of language around it. Great example of this is From the River to the Sea. Not a lot of kids who are chanting this, young adults who are chanting this, even grown adults know that they are actually yelling out a chant that promotes ethnic cleansing or genocide. They don't realize the original intent of it. They don't realize that this is a call to cleanse Israel from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea of all the Jews living inside of it. When you flag that for them, now sometimes people will get defensive, they don't want to hear you, so it's all in the how you approach as well as the what in your words. If they're willing to hear you, they're going to say, oh my gosh, no, I was not calling for genocide against the Jews. Sometimes they get defensive. No, you just don't know what it means. This is where some of that language and that framing, you could say, actually, let me point you to the resources and the origin of this term. And so if you have words like that or tropes, lines, let me know and we can talk about those. A few things that we have been encouraging parents to ensure for their kids. Do not respond to posts from unknown users. That's a huge one. That's a big one. Ensure that your kids are unfollowing anyone who is posting offensive content to protect them from what Dr. Fader gave me these words, media brutality. You want to make sure that they are not being brutalized. They should be unfollowing anyone who is posting offensive content. And then, by the way, that can also be coming from their friend groups. Sometimes the friend groups are sharing out stuff and not realizing that they could be inadvertently traumatizing their friends through what they share. Kind of like what Dr. Fader was saying about like how you describe how a person died. You don't want to traumatize someone, right? So you shouldn't use the descriptive, very graphic language. I was at an event this morning. One of the panelists decided that he was going to go into great detail about some really graphic components of the violence on October 7th. Honestly, just to shock and awe the audience. It was unnecessary and it was cruel. And I thought that it was a terrible power play on the part of somebody with a microphone. So unfollow offensive content. Report hate speech to online platforms. So if your child is experiencing hate speech online, you should be their advocate in that space and report it. Record it, report it, make sure that it's being documented. So give the X platform or whatever it is that they're using, give that platform a chance to try to respond and take care of it. Also encourage them to avoid online battles. And here I want to say, parents, we have to model good behavior. If we are getting into Facebook shouting matches with people in our networks, they're going to see that. They're going to model it. We shouldn't be engaging in online battles. They shouldn't be engaging in online battles. First of all, it causes all kinds of stress and undue anxiety, but also social media has yet to be an effective platform for productive discussions or the exchange of ideas. So let's just own it for what it is and not get into those battles. I think it's also really important to foster open and curious conversations. And also we should be modeling that behavior for them. If you see that your child is feeling like the online worldscape is causing them anxiety and stress, seek support and try to get them the care that they might need. And then I'm a huge fan of practicing empathy because there are times when we get really upset and we want to blast out on social media how angry we are, and we don't realize that we could be causing harm to our fellow classmates. So encouraging them to also practice empathy. And then the last thing I'll talk about is care at home. Actually, I'll show you my flowers first. I've not been in much of a flowers mood. But I went to the grocery store with my son today and he said that we needed flowers. We needed fall decorations. He's 5. And he was actually modeling for me the behavior that I should have been. He was telling me we have to find joy in this moment. Thankfully, he has very little idea of like the full context of what's going on, and he knows too much, but he demanded that we get flowers. And so I think that this is a great example of care at home and finding joy and creating joyous spaces for our kids. One of the first things I need to just say, because I need to own this, is that we have to reduce fear and anxiety at home. I don't know how many of us are glued to whatever screen it is, even if it's a discrete screen and we're just looking on our phones constantly. The 24-hour news cycle and the news coming out of Israel is terrifying and it's horrifying. And we want to keep abreast of everything that's happening every 30 seconds because it is so personal and it matters so much to us. But we are raising the anxiety at home when we're doing this. We have to take breaks. We have to focus on family whenever we can. We have to also give them permission because they're tuning into this to also take those breaks and focus on family as well. So here my son schooled me on how to find the joy and have a moment. And I think we have to do that. I also want to, in that same vein, talk about how we celebrate Jewish identity at home, because so much of what we're experiencing right now is founded in fear. And it's real fear and it's legitimate. And I'm not dismissing it in any way, shape, or form. But we also have to find the space to talk about our pride, Jewish identity, American Jewish contributions, American Jewish life, all of the things that we don't want to build an identity for our children that's grounded in fear. It's reactive that way. And look, I love May because May is Jewish American Heritage Month, and AJC, we're going to be rolling out all these programs in a lot of the school spaces actually this May. Very, very excited for that. But there's also ways to celebrate Jewish pride ahead of that. Make a big to-do of the Jewish holidays. Hanukkah's coming up. What an amazing, I mean, look at the theme.
Mm,
Like, this is all about using light to dispel the darkness. What a
mm.
great opportunity. Also a great opportunity to offer to bring it into the schools. Schools love celebrating the different holidays. And you could even say like, hey, can we come in and talk about Jewish history? Can we talk about the history of Hanukkah? I'll be perfectly honest, like in that you can also weave in Jewish indigeneity in Israel and in Jerusalem. You can talk about Jewish resilience. Yes, you can bring in the latkes too, but like this is an opportunity. It's not kitsch. It's actually really incredible to be able to come in and share a little bit of our culture and show pride, model that pride for your child. And then the last thing I want to say, and I really do appreciate that I didn't see your presentation, Dr. Fader, before because we were synced so beautifully. Practice gratitude as a family. And what do I mean by this? Thank our local electeds for their steadfast support and their moral clarity and their condemnations of Hamas and for standing with Israel. I have a list if you need it. I will give you the list of who has been standing firm. This is a really great opportunity, especially if your kids are older, to do a little bit of civic education and empowerment and engagement, but also get them a chance to practice gratitude, write letters, send emails to each of your local electeds and thank them. It also gives them a chance to realize they have allies and friends in leadership, which will give them hope. It's the civic engagement. I can't take off my educator's hat. There's that empowerment component too, but it also gives them a constructive thing to do. And it's something to do as a family. Thank allies, thank friends who reach out, thank the people who are showing moral clarity. And if you don't know like what forms to fill out or who to thank or how to take action, you can also have them do advocacy work with you too. actnow.ajc.org is our action hub where you can fill out forms urging local California electeds to stand with Israel, reaching out to members of Congress. Like there's so many ways that they can engage in activism and gratitude. And I think it's a great way to channel those energies in a way that's very constructive as a family. Okay, I've done enough talking. That's my bit.